and blend those two. So while you're creating, if you want to actually make money in what you're doing, you need to start paying attention to the business of the business, understanding how to run your finances, understanding how to do the legals. Now, law is one of those things that everyone sweeps under the carpet. The only time you really go to a lawyer is when you're in trouble, right? Has anyone interacted with a lawyer before?
Yes.
Was it a good experience?
It was a good experience, but it was under bad circumstances.
Okay, that's great. See, now usually people go to lawyers as a grudge purchase. And the problem with that is that you go when it's too late. You've already got the problem, you've lost some money, or you're trying to recover some money, and you have to spend money to get that money back. But law needs to be thought of the same way as you think of perhaps your accountant or your bookkeeper. It's someone who helps you grow your business. So I want to show you today why that's the case, and I'm going to give you a broad overview of the things that you need to know in order to waterproof your business. Why do I say waterproof your business? How many of you guys are Hive members? Oh, we've got a few Hive members. Are any of you involved in any other incubation programs, business support programs? But if you're all running your own business, you know that right now you're probably doing everything, right? Your marketing, your sales, your finances, your legal, your admin, your everything. So when you're running your business, you're thinking about putting a lot of things into like a bucket. If that's your business bucket, you're putting in finances definitely. You're putting in maybe social media spend. You're putting in time for marketing. And all of these things are things that are going to pay off towards building your business. One of the few things people think about is really the legal aspect. And that is like a hole at the bottom of your bucket. So for example, if you don't have solid contracts in place, or if you're not controlling your intellectual property, which we're going to focus on a lot today because you guys are creatives, and you probably create a lot of content, or you create products that have copyright or have design in them. If you're not protecting that, you can either have a slow leak, like you're not collecting your money, or you can have a catastrophic break, like you create something and someone steals that. So we're going to deal with that today. But if you want to waterproof your business, these are the 6 broad areas that you're looking at. The first is corporate governance. And I know that sounds like a mumbo jumbo word, but I hope by the end of it, you're going to understand exactly what I mean by that and why it's important. The next one is intellectual property. I think that is something that most of you are interested in knowing about. The next is employment law. Most people have a good idea because probably all of us have been employees at some point in time. So we have a kind of working idea of how it works, but employment law and intellectual property work quite closely together. Then there's trade. So when people think about the things that can go wrong in your business, like the things that can go wrong legally in your business, what do you usually think about?
Copyright theft.
Copyright theft, people not paying you, people suing you because you've done something wrong. So we're usually focusing down here, right? Or over there. So this is actually the order that you need to be thinking about your business to waterproof and risk manage yourself. So trade and cash flow are linked. So trade is your contracts, your standard terms and conditions, your JVs, your MOUs. Cash flow is making sure that you actually collect the money. And compliance is any kind of compliance that you might need for your particular business. So those are laws that you need to comply with. So let's say you're in fashion, you might need to comply with Consumer Protection Act because you're selling clothes to the public. And you would want to know what are the proper returns policies that you need to have. Right, so let's jump in. So everyone said that they're running a business here. One of the very first things I like to discuss is your choice of entity for your business. So that's something that, you just run off, you register a PTY, or you trade as yourself, and you don't necessarily know whether this is the best choice for you. But this is where the whole legal conversation starts. So by a show of hands, who's got a PTY registered? Is anyone still running as a CC? Who's running as a sole proprietor, so they're just trading as themselves? You haven't got anything registered. Okay. Cool, so I'm going to tell you some of the risks and the pros and cons about this. And it's going to give you a really good idea about whether it's the right choice for you. So sole proprietor is you're running as yourself, and there's no separation between you and the business. So the reason why you start a business or you register a company is something called limited liability. You want to separate the debts of the company from your debts, and the risk of the company from your risk. If you're trading as a sole proprietor, you're paying less tax because you're not paying that 28% company's tax, and then paying your own personal tax at whatever your rate is. But it's much higher risk. So if you're doing something that's low risk, like maybe you're a logo designer, and there's very low chance that someone's going to sue you. It's a very simple, low-risk service, not like law or accounting. Then trading as a sole prop is perfectly fine. However, if you're doing something with high risk, like let's say you need to order a lot of materials and you might incur a lot of debt, or you might sign. So let's say you are a fashion designer and you need to order a lot of fabrics and materials, or you need to import things from China. Then that's quite a bit of risk, and you would want to separate that out from your business. So the business from you. So that means that the debts of the business are the debts of the business, and no one's going to be able to come after your car or your house or attack your personal finances. Does that make sense? So a CC is a separate entity. You can't register a new CC. Some people still trade as a CC. I see there's no one in the room who does that. It used to be less admin, and some accountants will still tell you, oh, don't run as a small company because it's a lot of admin. That's really old-fashioned advice. Under the New Companies Act, running a small company, you don't have to have audits. It's quite easy. So the problem with the CC is if you're thinking of raising funding, and you're thinking of raising funding from an entity like a venture capital firm, or you're looking at raising institutional funding, they can't invest in your business for equity because CCs can only have individual people as members. Do you guys get what I mean? So if you're looking to create something that is going to go outside of South Africa, CCs are only used in South Africa and Namibia. So if you're looking to spread outside of South Africa, and if you're looking to raise funding from funders who want equity in your business, then probably a PTY is a better deal for you. So it's the easiest to run, it's recognized across the world, you can have equity investments in it, and it just generally has better protection for you as a director than a CC. A partnership, we use the word partnership like loosely in public, like, oh, we're partners. But the word partner in a legal sense means you're like two sole proprietors. You share each other's debts and responsibilities. It's like being married in community of property. How crazy is that? You don't want to run as a partnership. It's a bad idea. And if your partner is married in community of property, that means that if your partner's husband has a gambling habit, boom, your business is in trouble. So we don't want to do that anymore. And then trusts. You can run a business through a trust, but I don't recommend it because trusts are taxed at a much higher rate than individuals. It's only good if you want to hold properties in a trust, or if you want to use it to build wealth into the future for your family, but you're not using it to generate income out of. So probably the safest bet for you guys is either PTY or a sole prop, depending on how much risk you want to take, bearing in mind that you'll probably pay a little bit more tax there. Are you guys happy with your choices for your entities? So, those of you who have a PTY registered, have you ever read your MOI, your Memorandum of Incorporation? Hands up. You've read your MOI?
I've skimmed through it.
You've skimmed through it. So it looks like it's like, do you remember when you registered your company and you had to just click on a button and said you choose a short form MOI? And that was it, and you never read it. It was just, it was like, going and getting your driver's license filled out, you just fill out a form and you forget what it said. Most people don't read it, so When I registered my first company, I didn't read it either. Short 3-page document with a bunch of legal stuff on it. Now I'm going to talk you through some of the things that are on that MOI and explain to you why it's important. Do you remember the first time that you played Monopoly? Has everyone played Monopoly here? Yeah? What did you do the first time you played Monopoly?
Read the instructions.
Read the instructions. Or did some of us just start building hotels and GHS, whatever? You did that. So now think about it this way, right? Your MOI are the rules of the business game. So what we've all done here when we started our first business is we started playing the game without reading the rules. So your MOI are the basic rules about how you run a business. And it works like this. You've got the Companies Act, then you've got your MOI, and then you've got any shareholders agreement you have. And if you're trading outside of the terms of your MOI, you're trading recklessly. You can be struck, your company can be deregistered, you can be found to be a reckless director. Now you're probably thinking, I haven't read this thing, woman, how am I supposed to know whether I'm running contrary to it or not? So I'm going to tell you some of the things that are in this MOI. One, it sets out how you call directors' meetings. It sets out how you call shareholders' meetings. It sets out how many people must be at each of those meetings for a decision to be made. It sets out what decisions require shareholders to make them and what percentage you need to pass those decisions by. So let me give you an example. Shareholder special resolutions require at least 75% of the shareholders to vote on them. One of those is to dispose of the majority of assets in the business. Have you ever run a company and let's say you had you were running a sneaker business and you had a whole lot of stock and you decided that you wanted to dispose of all of the stock and shut the business down. 2 partners in the business and you go ahead and sell all the stock without them because the guy's not really been around. Is that the kind of decision that we probably make pretty often? So that means that you've been trading contrary to your MOI. And that's quite a dangerous thing because if you end up in litigation, and I used to be a litigation attorney, that means that I used to take people to court. If your partner comes to me and says, how many of you have business partners here, by the way, like other shareholders? How many shareholders in each business? You and another person. 2 of you. Is it often that you disagree about decisions? Most of the time we're aligned. Okay, that's great. So let me tell you the number one way that businesses go under and that they lose value are through shareholder fights. So understanding how to trade properly in terms of your MOI is really, really important to make sure that you're running your business properly. Because if your shareholder does get into a fight with you and they go to a lawyer, the very first thing I'll do is get a copy of your MOI, which is a public document, and ask them what you've been doing and find out ways that you've been running contrary to your MOI. And the difficulty about that is if you're a director and a shareholder, as a director, you can be personally liable for bad decisions that are contrary to the MOI. So even though there's a separate business, directors still have what we call fiduciary duties towards the company. So you have to act in good faith, you have to be honest, you have to do things by the book. So when we're running businesses and we're really passionate about what we do, we very seldom think about the black and white and the law of it. But I'm sure everyone here wants to grow your business, right? And so that's why we have to start thinking about governance first. Because getting your governance right is your first step towards not being a Mickey Mouse business, and is your first step towards growth. So your MOI, etc., will contain how the company can make loans to shareholders. It has a lot of information in it that's very important. So one of the first things that you'll find on the cover of the MOI is the number of authorized shares. Do you guys all remember how many authorized shares you had on the front cover of your MI? 1,000, 10,000? Everyone's like, oh my God, I just realized I don't know anything about my business. You don't have to feel bad about it. Most of us don't, right? So let me explain to you the difference between authorized and issued shares. Authorized shares are your stock on the shelf. All that a share is an ability for you to raise capital into your business. So when we think of shares, we think of shares as ownership, right? And it is ownership. But it's also a way for you to raise funds within your business. Now, PTY is a private company, which means that you can't go and stand on the street corner or go listed on the JSE and ask people to subscribe for shares like you do with Sasol, Zara, etc. You have to offer your shares to the other people in the business or specifically to third parties on specific terms. So it's a private company. How you do that is you have authorized shares, like 10,000, 1,000 shares that are stock on a shelf, and then you have your issued shares, which are held in the hands of shareholders. So let's say you've got 2 shareholders like yourself. How many shares do you each have in the business? 50-50. Do you have a share certificate? Okay. So how many individual shares do you have, or do you not know? You just know the percentage. Okay. So let's assume that you each have 50 shares and the issued shares are 100. Right? That means that you each 50-50 shareholders. But you must have more shares than that on the shelf so that if everyone wants to come into the business, you can issue new shares to them instead of just selling your shares. So if you think about it in a sense, it's like going into macro and you see that there's big sort of stack of tomato cans going to the sky and you need like one of those big cranes to go pick it up. Those are your authorized shares. Your issued shares are the ones that you take off the shelf, 50 cans, you pay for them and you walk out and you get a certificate which says that those are your shares. So always make sure that when you register a company, you make sure you have enough authorized shares to issue more shares in the future. Who can tell me the difference between shareholders and directors?